The Bates family has a tragic update. Up next. Hey guys, it's Katie from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It's Monday, January 18th, and it's time to get started on the third round of the day, which is the Bates family, the Bates, Kelly and Gil Bates, the bringing up the Bates, all the Bates, you know. Lawson and Trace were probably the most recent in the news because they decided to go to an event at the Capitol that got really out of control. There was a lot of calls to Up Network or Up TV to cancel the show, but the network basically has said that Lawson and Trace were not in the Capitol, they were only outside, and therefore they will continue on. So that's the good news, I guess. Now, in the middle of all of that, the Bates and the Duggars, along with a lot of Fundy families, have been running around the world with not wearing masks. There's been a lot of questions from viewers and just in general if any of the families would end up facing some pretty dire consequences. And it sounds like, unfortunately, the Bates have, because they made an announcement on their Instagram and it's pretty sad. And it involves Kelly's mom and her stepfather. But before we get started, can you do me a favor and give this video a thumbs up? Also, subscribe down here if you have not yet subscribed, and turn those notifications on so you know when I go live. So the Bates have been on TV for quite some time, and they have a zillion kids, a zillion grandkids, and now they have an update about Kelly's mom. So Kelly and Gil shared the update on their Instagram with a photo of her mother in bed next to one of their daughters, and it said this: "This past week, I had the chance to spend time with my beautiful mom. She's had a very difficult few weeks. She has had many falls over the last couple years and recently fell and broke her nose. Sadly, while she was in the hospital, they determined that she had COVID, though she and her husband had not gone anywhere except doctor appointments and had been careful to not see people. When her husband Tom learned she had COVID, he also went to the hospital and was diagnosed with COVID. Tragically, Tom passed away while they were both still in the hospital. They would have been married for 4 years in February. Mom has recovered, but since she still has the risks of fall, she is adjusting to having some family caregivers around to spoil her. She is also doing physical therapy to strengthen her muscles. She is nicknamed Callie, her gatekeeper, because Callie guarded her doorway to keep her from trying to get around without help. Callie is super protective and wouldn't leave her side. Mom is getting stronger daily, and the bruising on her face from her broken nose is clearing up. She loves talking and telling old stories, and we laughed for hours reminiscing. But there are lots of sad memories as she reflected on how much she already misses Tom. Thank you all for your prayers for Mima." And then they shared 2-3 photos regarding the events. This is really sad. Obviously for Kelly and Gil, this is tragic, right? So mom is at an age where she's falling more, and that means she's going to be in the hospital more frequently or have to deal with this. I went through this as well when my grandmother was aging. She would fall a lot. It's very scary. And while in the hospital, she likely contracted the virus. Now, she says that they had been very careful, and it's not known how she came in contact to this. So again, it's unclear. But the really sad thing is that she's in the hospital, and then her husband contracts it as well. And they're in there together. They can't be together, and he passes. It's truly upsetting, obviously, that someone has succumbed to this illness. And I find this message from her a little bit odd because there's so little about Tom. He's the one that has gone, and he's the one that's no longer here. And there's nothing like, we are so heartbroken. We loved him so much. He was such a great husband and family member, and we miss him. You know, it was very like matter of a fact of almost like, Tom passed away while we were both still in the hospital. They would have been married for 4 years. Like that's all they said. And then it's like back onto mom and how she's recovering. I find it kind of like, I don't know if they had some sort of odd relationship with Tom. I'm not sure if they just didn't want to focus on what happened to Tom and they just wanted to focus on mom. It all seems sort of odd to me. And then in the middle of all of that, some people were noting right off the bat that the mother was in bed and she had Callie next to her, but Callie was laying very close to her grandmother with no mask on right after her grandmother got out of the hospital. So some people were criticizing them over that. No matter what happened here, it's super tragic. But long story short, there's some questions here for me about why there's so little focus on Tom and why we're only focusing on mom. And then again, what this will mean long term in terms of how seriously the family will start to take this virus seriously. It's been a very unfortunate, year of a lot of misinformation with a lot of these fundamentalist families just not believing it because of the misinformation that they've been given from the government and from their president. And there's also just been a lack of understanding about the importance of one, social distancing, and two, wearing masks. Now, I'm not at all saying that the mom or her husband did anything wrong. They could have very well contracted it while they were in the hospital. Community spread in hospitals is a huge issue. Like any single time you're in the hospital, you know that if there's a virus going around, there's a likelihood that you can contract it simply because of how it travels. So it could have just been she's in the hospital and then somehow comes in contact with it, whether through someone in the hospital or just community spread. It seems like mom is doing better and she's sharing stories about her husband, but the family doesn't really have much to say about her husband. So lots of sad memories as she reflected on how much she already misses Tom. But then the family has nothing to say about Tom. So I don't know if Tom was, someone that they just didn't know as well, or if they just don't want to talk about Tom. But it's really sad, right? There's this guy now that's gone and it's so tragic, you guys. Like every single day, there's like more and more of these stories of people just contracting it and then, they're separated from their loved ones and they're not together. I mean, could you imagine going through something like that? Like you are bringing your wife to the hospital, you're just trying to take care of her, and then in the midst of all of that, you come down with this virus, and then while she's still in the hospital, you end up gravely ill and you pass, and the two of you can't be together. Like, I would imagine that would cause a lot of confusion for both of them in that state. Obviously, with him, he is not here anymore, and then for her to have to kind of like wake up from that fog and realize like, whoa, like my husband's gone. It's got to be heartbreaking. I really do hope in the midst of all of this that as families go through loss, that they start to realize and wake up and sort of take this seriously. It's so important that all of us do our part so that these types of stories don't happen. And it breaks my heart to know that this family has a loss now, and this poor woman who simply fell down and broke her nose ended up losing her husband. It's just like, it's unfathomable. We know that, the Bates themselves have been all over the place maskless or not properly social distancing. I mean, we know that Trace and Lawson were in DC in that huge rally. While they had masks on at times, there was not a lot of social distancing going on in that context. And so you just, you kind of wonder, like, what were they exposed to? Was it at the hospital or was it from the family? It's just so sad. And I really, really, really hope these fundamentalists and these very staunch people that believe what the misinformation that they've been told do wake up and realize that we all need to do our part. So my heart goes out to the Bates family on this very tragic loss. My heart goes out to Tom and Tom's family. I don't know, if he had kids with someone else before, I don't know if he had kids from a previous marriage, but my condolences to everyone connected to Tom and thoughts of healing to Kelly's mom. All right, you guys, tell me what your thoughts are in the comments below. Bye.